Hello, and welcome to First Christian Church's Adult Fellowship Bible Study. This is our 12th lesson from the Old Testament book of the Apocrypha titled First Maccabees. We will cover chapters 12 and 13 today in this 12th lesson. Chapter 12 opens with an account of a diplomatic mission that the Jewish people send these ambassadors to Rome. Recall there was one earlier back several chapters ago. Apparently this new mission is necessary to renew whatever treaty they had now that Jonathan has become the high priest. It's not clear exactly why, but that's what scholars imply they think is the reason for it. Scholars report that the claim made here, though, that this was confirmed by the Jewish Senate is not accurate, and the reason for that being there's not such a body. The closest thing that they would have had to this would be the Council of Elders, and the Jewish Council of Elders would have been involved with approving any kind of treaty, and consequently, because Rome has a Senate, they think the writer here is sort of taking some liberties in order to allow some equality with the Romans. The delegation also, this same delegation apparently, goes to Sparta, seeking a political alliance with them. This was 144 BC, and the Romans 2 years before had fought a war with the Greeks. The Spartans no longer were allied with the rest of the Greeks, called the Akkadian, and they have now on their own pulled off, the Spartans have, and allied themselves with Rome, and therefore probably were advised by the Romans to then also seek a treaty with those Spartans. So the world's changed. The writer here is making it appear that the Maccabean Jews and their diplomacy they're in the world. They're up there with Rome, they're up there with Sparta, and they're continuing to fight on various sides in the Seleucid Civil War. They're acting very much as an independent state, although scholars say the reality is not quite that they're an independent state, but that's the way it's written. You might note that these beautiful greetings that are in these two letters that are given here to the Spartans and the Romans, these greetings are very similar to what we see in the First Testament in Paul's writings, or New Testament, I should say. And the scholars, literary scholars, say these are just great examples of the type greetings that you see in the Hellenistic world anytime between roughly 300 BC and about 100 100 AD. While this Jewish political venue is unfolding, civil war was continuing to go on in the Seleucid Empire, of which Judea was part of the Seleucid Empire. Jonathan and his brother Simeon conduct another very successful military campaign on behalf of this baby king Antiochus VI and his sidekick, you might say, Tripol. And they're fighting the deposed king, previous king, Demetrius II. The Jews are operating in support of, like I say, of Tripol, and who's commanding the Antiochus's army. And the Jews have very significant, if you read this is very significant movement, a freedom of movement. throughout much of the old Israelite territory, which had been conquered 500 years before by the Assyrians. So they're gaining lots of movement, lots of freedom of movement. They're moving their army readily from one place to the other. They're no longer confined to just Judea and Samaria, which is where they were when at the start of this book, but are operating throughout the Trans-Euphrates province, all the way to the sea in some parts of that, well into to Syria. And they're doing this in support of whichever faction they're supporting in the Seleucid Civil War. During the military campaign, Jonathan went north, which he had done once before, while his brother Simeon handles the military activities in the coastal plain, the west and towards the coastal plain, going towards the sea. He extends their control, that is, Simeon extends his control all the way to the coast, to Joppa. The Maccabees are now in control of much of the northern and western parts of the old Israelite territory, well outside Judah, and they are loyal to Antiochus VI, the baby king, and who's an infant at this stage, and his regent Tripol, who is the military leader. The Seleucids under Tripol, however, control the rest of most of the rest of the territory, except for the very northern part of the Seleucid Empire, which is where the deposed king Demetrius II operates with some support, but influential support. Something goes wrong, though, in this relationship, in that Tripol then abandons the baby king and declares himself king/emperor, puts on the crown, and a large amount of the army supports Tripol. Now, Tripol has no ancestral lineage to this office, so he is acting more as a dictator. He's got strong backing by the army, a lot of the army anyway, and the navy. Essentially, he's in control along the coast and into the northeastern parts of the province. So we now have three factions operating in the Seleucid Empire. You've got Tripol and his army. You've got baby king Antiochus VI and whomever is his new general and an army. And then you have the deposed king Demetrius II, who is operating especially in the northern parts of the area. So these three are in a civil war with one another. Currently in this mess, Jonathan is loyal, though, to baby king Antiochus VI. Jonathan goes then after Tripol to stop him from destroying Antiochus's army. But for some reason, and it's not written here as to why, Jonathan is tricked by Tripol into dismissing the majority of his army and only coming into a council with just a bodyguard, while Tripol has his whole army. And when he gets inside wherever they're holding a convention, immediately his bodyguards are surrounded and killed, and Jonathan is taken alive. The Jews assumed, however, that Jonathan is dead because he had a reputation that they knew he would have died fought to the last man and died with the last breath. That's how much of a fighter he was. So they're not very much inclined to think there's any chance of him being alive. Chapter 13 starts out with there's great mourning throughout Judea because of what they assumed is Jonathan's death. His brother Simeon then replaces him as head of the clan, head of the government, and also as high priest. And Simeon now is the last of the series of Maccabean brothers. Simeon then seeks revenge against Tripol because of what he assumes is the death of his brother. Tripol invades Judah, primarily from the east, and informs them that Jonathan is in fact alive, and if they want to keep him alive, they need to surrender 2 of his sons also. And for some reason, Simeon does this. Now, there's great debate amongst scholars as to why Simeon would have done this. It doesn't make sense under most logic, with one exception, and it's not a nice one, and that is Simeon wanted his own son to become high priest. He did not want to have to compete with the sons of Jonathan. Whether there's any truth to that, we don't know, but there is a number of lines of scholarship that point in that direction. Tripol moves his army, mainly his cavalry, to the east, northeast, to Gilead, and comes in through the hills in that direction, launching a major attack in the winter of 1943-1942 to destroy and overpower Judah. But heavy snow stops him, which the conclusion is that heavy snow was an act of God. God's on our side. Tripol then kills Jonathan, kills the 2 sons, and then returns, or at least leaves Judea. Chapter 13 opens, it doesn't open it, verses 25 through 30, describes the events of them retrieving the bones of Jonathan and burying them at Modin, which is the ancestral family site. Tripol is able to also attack and kill the baby king Antiochus VI, and then declares himself as emperor, since he had no bloodline to the throne. So he's emperor of the Seleucid. And he then goes after the deposed king Demetrius II in an attempt to take the northern provinces and totally have control of the Seleucid Empire. The Jews, the Maccabees, Simeon here, shifts his loyalty then from Tripol, baby king Antiochus' side, to Demetrius. Remember, prior to his being deposed, the Maccabees supported Demetrius. So they now have shifted their loyalty back in that direction. Simeon concentrates on greatly, in addition to fighting these wars against him, he concentrates his efforts, though, primarily in improving his defenses in Judea and in Jerusalem, and improving ties with Demetrius II. In 142 BC, Demetrius then agrees to a type of peace with Judah and grants independence to Judah under the Maccabees. They recognize Simeon as high priest and military commander, political authority, and give him authority also over all these conquered territories that the Jews had conquered. So he has authority over a wide area. This is a bigger job now, and Simeon now does mainly the political work and the high priest work, and appoints his son John as the military commander at the sea city of Joppa. Simeon still commands the military in Jerusalem. Moreover, in Joppa area, the Jews remove the native population that's there, practicing various other religions, including Jews that were allied with them, and repopulates them with Jews that follow the type Jewish religion, ancestral Jewish religion, that the Maccabees support. However, there's a Jewish opposition that we've not mentioned in class today. Remember, still a Jewish civil war going on, and the opposition to the Maccabees is holed up in the citadel. Well, things look bad for the opposition, and the opposition finally sues for peace with the Maccabees and surrenders the citadel. This allows the southern side of the temple now to be reinforced, fortified, completing the defense of Jerusalem. This chapter closes with a level of harmony in Judea. The ancestral faith is being practiced in the temple. Judah has significant security. Much of the old Israel territory has now come back under the control of the Jews, under the Maccabees, and they are being led by a Maccabee, the last son of the Maccabees, Simeon, as the high priest and political leader. And the army in the field is under the control of that high priest son, John, who we will hear a lot more about, and who himself reigns for a long time later. Next lesson, we'll conclude our study of 1 Maccabees. We'll cover chapters 14 through 16, so you can go ahead and feel free to read ahead, and we'll close out 1 Maccabees in our next session.